This will go live, and then extra recording going.
All right.
Talk.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
All right, cool.
All right.
Let's go. All right, man.
Let's do this. Go on.
Yeah. All right. You're good. Broadcasting. Good. All right.
All right. We're going to be starting in just a moment here, folks. Right here in the studio, it's going to be NFL football talk with myself and Mr. Lardieri. And someone give me a countdown, 3 and 2 and 1. Hey, welcome NFL football fans. That time again. Time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. And hey, 3 weeks in the books. We're going to go ahead and take a look back at a tumultuous week 3 in which a lot of teams lost. Everybody was talking about the political messages going on. But a lot of upsets last week. I mean, Denver lost, Oakland lost, the Steelers lost, Carolina lost. A lot of butt kicking going on. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. So as you know, I do not work alone. I do enlist the help of only the very, very best. So here he is. And fortunately, he's safe from that canyon fire out here somewhere in an undisclosed location in beautiful Southern California. The pride of Rutgers University, the man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L Sports, Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's up out there, man?
Charles, thanks again. Yes, thankfully the wind has cooperated. I just heard a helicopter go over, a lot of brave firefighters battling that blaze, and knock on wood, it looks like they're starting to get it under control, but one never knows in Southern California in September and October, fire season.
Yep, there we go. So, let's go ahead and get right into this. Now, we had all the upsets this past week. Denver losing to the Buffalo, Oakland getting squashed by the Redskins, Pittsburgh losing to Chicago, Baltimore getting absolutely destroyed by the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. You got minor, of course, my Miami Dolphins laid an egg against the New York Jets, but that happens sometimes. But, do you think maybe it was a weekend where a lot of teams weren't necessarily focused on football the way they should have been?
Yeah, I think so, especially with the Raiders and the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks have kind of been ground zero for the protests. And when I hear they had a 4-hour meeting before the game, that's not a good sign. I mean, hard to be focused when you got a lot of that on your mind. Looks like the Raiders, too. They really threw a dud in Washington. I was surprised by that. Listen, with your Dolphins, I do have to clarify something. Jay Cutler is their quarterback, so all excuses are off. When you have Jay Cutler, you never know what you're going to get. So I'll just blame him. And look, I don't know.
Cutler's like a box of chocolates, right?
Oh, geez, no kidding. But, hey, look on the bright side, Jets fans. You're now the best team in the New York tri-state area. And the Giants literally and proverbially have a dog named Odell Beckham Jr. who celebrates touchdowns and creates another controversy in the Big Apple.
Yeah, that's true. What about your 0-3 New York Giants? That's one that I kind of left out. It's not necessarily an upset that they lost to Philadelphia, but now here they are 0-3 in that tough NFC East. So maybe panic time there? I don't know.
It could be. I mean, if this were the NBA, we just go 76ers and tank the season here for the Giants, right? Look, kind of a perfect storm. The defense let them down at times. The offense couldn't get going. Questionable play calling by Ben McAdoo, not only going for it in a 4th and goal, but the play calling was atrocious. Sterling Shepard, look, we can get into this later. I still don't know what a catch is in the NFL. I couldn't explain it to my kids. When you catch the ball and then bobble it after your 2 feet are down out of bounds and it's not a reception, I don't know. But regardless, it was fitting for them to lose on a 61-yard field goal. And honestly, with the Beckham mess now, we're back to where Tom Coughlin was in 2015 with the Josh Norman incident. Could be chaos in that locker room. And frankly, I don't have a lot of confidence in McAdoo's play calling or coaching or counseling abilities for that matter.
That's true, and it's almost as though Beckham doesn't understand that this is a contract year. You think he'd want to be, doing everything exactly right to maximize his value, for the upcoming offseason.
You would think, but you know what? OBJ is OBJ, going back to the old baseball player, Manny being Manny Ramirez. That's, I guess, the only way you can describe it. Even some of the Giants teammates in the locker room really don't want to talk about it anymore. So, I mean, the guy's a phenomenal talent. If he ever screwed his head on straight, I mean, the sky's the limit for him. But until then, I don't know if he needs attention or what. But, yeah, not looking good for the Giants or my prediction of them winning the NFC East.
Yeah, that's true. And then out here, we got to talk about the couple of teams out here out west. Well, one is the LA Rams, who it looks like Jared Goff may finally be getting it together. I like what I saw in the Thursday night game. Granted, it was San Francisco, and everybody can just dismiss it. But what I liked was I think Goff is finally to the point where he can actually see the layers of the defense. And I saw him throwing into windows where the receiver wasn't quite open, but he knew they were going to be there. And that is something that Steve Young said when he started doing that, that's when he turned the corner as a quarterback. So I think Goff may be headed in the right direction.
Definitely. I mean, Sean McVay's done a phenomenal job. I know we're only 3 games in, but he looks more confident. His throws are more accurate. Chris Collinsworth showed on the telecast his release is faster. Looks like a completely different quarterback. And I mean, if you don't believe me or you're skeptical, look at that bomb he threw to Sammy Watkins, a phenomenal catch, and kind of doing a Willie Mays over the shoulder routine. Goff really put the ball on the money. So look, if I'm the Rams, the way this league works, they've got a weak schedule. You can call me crazy. I said a few weeks ago Jared Goff would do well against the 49ers in fantasy. I hope you listen to me, but I'll go out on a limb here. I mean, it's not within reason for the Rams to go 8-8, 9-7 if they continue at this pace. The Cardinals are definitely vulnerable. They've already beaten the 49ers once, and we know historically the Rams play the Seahawks tough. So I think things are looking much brighter for the Rams and their neighbors little south of them, the Chargers.
And the Chargers, I mean, again, they didn't actually sell out StubHub Center, which seats less than 30,000, even though the tickets technically were sold. But there were a lot of empty seats, and the Chiefs were in town. It was a sea of red there. In fact, it was so bad they did not do player introductions because they didn't want to have the visiting team out yell the home crowd. So the Chargers now, they're 0-3, just dropped another game. So I don't know. I've never seen a relocation go like this horribly, but I don't know. The NFL may wind up with a huge problem with the Chargers out here.
I think they already have a problem. And look, we talked about this multiple times over the years. The Chargers are not an LA team, despite what Roger Goodell wanted to ram down your throat. They've got a San Diego fan base. That's who roots for them. I know it bleeds into parts of South Orange County, for those of you not familiar with geography here. But, look, they shouldn't have moved. Number one, San Diego botched that up. That's another topic for another time. But to go into a soccer stadium and to be unprepared for this, really, it's just turning into a big mess. I mean, there's some rumors out there that the NFL's concerned and they're thinking about, well, is there potentially an option for them to play in San Diego for a couple years, a la the Raiders and Oakland having this final swan song before they go to Vegas? How can you even do that when the fan base is already alienated? But it's been completely botched. And look, we have no one to blame but Roger Goodell and Dean Spanos. Spanos just wanted to move because if he took his house and put it in a pricier zip code, it's going to appreciate. I mean, short of him selling the team, I don't know how this gets resolved. Yeah,
that's true. So an abundance of problems there, which, their 0-3 record is just, belies what is out there. But, we got to talk about the whole thing of, you had all these choreographed demonstrations here this past weekend, kneeling because of the national anthem and what Trump said about the athletes. And, we just got to say something on this here. I still think it's, no matter what may be going on, you still respect the country, you honor the flag. And I think that what the commissioner should do is, if these guys want to kneel, that's fine. Go ahead. You feel that's your right. But have each of the players write 500 words on why they are kneeling for the national anthem, because you can't tell me the 1,600 players all of a sudden agree on exactly the same thing. They don't. They all have their different reasons. And if you want to effect change here, I think that if you had all the players do that who are going to kneel, you'd have 500 different 500 word things from all these different players, and you can look at all this variety of reasons. And I think that could provide the tapestry that you need to look at the different issues that people feel are in society. So accountability and context. so that you don't just have all the bickering going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's call it as we see it here. Donald Trump went on a rally for a candidate who tonight did not winning down in Alabama, and decided to call a guy who's sitting on the couch like you and I out of the league, Colin Kaepernick, an SOB, and you've had a proverbial S storm, as they say. Look, here's what I have to say. If the guys want to do it, great. I didn't agree with the way Kaepernick necessarily approached it, but that said, this is America. He could do what he wants. He's not burning a flag. I'm not in favor of that either, but whether you like it or not, people protest for religious things, Planned Parenthood, 10 Commandments, you name it. That's what's great about America. And I get what Kaepernick was doing. Victor Cruz had a great line. Well, I don't necessarily agree with him kneeling for the national anthem, Cruz said last year. He has his right to protest, and he's got a point. We need to listen to that. But to drag Kaepernick back into it for political reasons, all Donald Trump did is unite the players and the owners for the first time ever, when last week we were talking about there's going to be collective bargaining hell to pay in a couple of years when the agreement's up and everyone's sick of Goodell. So his unintended consequences is he united a lot of people. But look, I mean, there are people who I've seen at the national anthem with their hat on and they refuse to take it off and they're disrespectful. So honestly, I don't know how politics got involved. Well, I know how in this case, but when politics gets involved in sports, they're strange bedfellows. But look, this is America. These guys can do what they want. I think some of the people like Michael Bennett, who actually got allegedly attacked by cops in Las Vegas, has a point. I mean, we'll see how that materializes. And then there are other guys who, you know, I don't know why they do it. There's a catcher on the Oakland A's who knelt. Good for him. But no, I don't see that storm in baseball. What gets me is the people I read on social media. I'm never watching the NFL again. Charles, look, you and I know that's not true. People are going to watch football. It's a drug, whether they gamble, whether they play fantasy football. Frankly, it's the best real reality television out there, and people enjoy it. And college football is great, too. Don't get me wrong. I know their ratings are up. But look, they're just as corrupt as any other organization, as we saw today with a federal attorney come down, cracking down on real crime in the NCAA. So, I mean, look, you could say that all you want, but I'm still watching football. I enjoy it. And I guess Donald Trump really elicited a lot of great games. We had 2 overtime games, including the first one Aaron Rodgers ever won, which I never knew about. A lot of close calls and the infamous 10-second tick-off that cost the poor Lions a game. Another rule I'll never understand. But yeah, so thank you, President Trump, for creating this firestorm and getting people interested in the NFL again, and not talking about the Kardashians' babies, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but because DirecTV is offering now, they're offering refunds for people who had Sunday Ticket, and they want to cancel it for the political reasons. The one thing I don't like about it is, sports is escapism. It is, from all the other things that we have in the daily life, and then football or any sport you watch, that's kind of that pure thing where you don't have to deal with all those outside things. And now, if you start politicizing sports, I mean, that takes away from the purity of it, and a lot of the reasons why it is nice to sit down in front of the TV on a Sunday and watch football all day, because you don't have to deal with all that nonsense. We'll call it nonsense, that Monday through Friday stuff.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I was sitting there Sunday. I needed the Chiefs to win. I needed Kareem Hunt to get me some points, and I was so excited to see him rip that run off against the Chargers. That's what football's about, whether you're a degenerate gambler or my son who loves the game, or you've got if you're like me, you like the Giants, your season's all but done. I just want to see some good football and not worry about what's going on in the real world for a few hours. I completely agree. And I think anyone who mocks that or says, like OBJ did with fantasy football players, it's fun. All right. Not everyone leads these pampered lives. We're a lot of average people here just trying to make a living and do the right thing and raise our kids. And once a week, whether it be 3 or 6 hours, we enjoy watching football. It makes us happy. It's not crack cocaine.
There you go. Although it feels like that sometimes.
I don't know. I can't speak from experience. I'll take your word for it, Charles. I'm not pointing any fingers.
Hey, I made it through the 80s squeaky clean. That's all I have to say about it. So let's go ahead and move on to actual football now. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks, they lose this past weekend, lose to Tennessee. They're sitting at 1-2. We could possibly have the Rams have good defense there. They're sitting at 2-1. You look at the problems with Seattle. I think Seattle finally, they've lost enough pieces to where they just are not the formidable team they have been. Their offensive line is pretty much terrible. They don't really have a running game, and you can't leave their defense on the field all day. So they've got their problems. We saw Arizona in their – what did they do? They completely dominated Dallas in the first half of their Monday night game, but they're only up 7-0, and ultimately Dallas starts steamrolling them in the second half. They've got their problems without David Johnson. So there could be some real surprises there in that NFC West and maybe a shift here.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be one of those years like the good old days where 8-8, 9-7, or heaven forbid 7-9 wins this division. I mean, the Seahawks, I know you were high on them in the preseason, but you know, I thought they'd at least win the division. They're exceeding even my lowered expectations. And then I think in that locker room, there's still the potential boiling over for a mutiny, because for whatever reason, Richard Sherman cannot get over that Super Bowl loss, and it's an us versus them attitude with all fingers pointed at Russell Wilson. Look, Russell Wilson played great against Tennessee. If anything, the defense failed them. Marcus Mariota and the running game at Tennessee really worked them. So they're not as invincible as they used to be. I think their secondary's vulnerable, and if you've got an O-line that'll stop their pass rush, their game's taken away. Cardinals have really, I mean, I was high on them. Without David Johnson, they're just at best an average team. So I mean, you know, you can blame Carson Palmer all you want, but that team really is missing the only true weapon other than Larry Fitzgerald, who had a phenomenal game on offense. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. So, you know, let's go ahead and get into it. As everyone knows, we do several segments here. One is the picks. We take 5 of the more intriguing games of the week and give you our picks on those games. And then we have our Gambler's Delight pick, which is helpful if maybe you're in Vegas and got $20 to put down. And we also have some fantasy football advice. And just remember, if you're not necessarily completely about the NFL, we do have NBA on here also. Anthony Barbarin and Gerald Glassford do a great job, so make sure you check that out on the Inside Sports when you check it out on iTunes. So definitely going to be getting all that ready for you. So, Mr. Lardieri, before we get into the picks, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I think in light of all the political issues we had over the weekend, there are a couple of themes that recur from year to year that make me feel good about the NFL. We talked about the phantom drop pass of Sterling Shepard. You looked at another phantom offensive pass interference game. Trent Taylor of the 49ers laid a hand on a Rams cornerback, and suddenly that's offensive pass interference that ultimately affected a potential game-winning drive for the 49ers. The 10-second runoff. Replays not going the way you expect. So it's good and heartwarming to see that some things are still right in the NFL. I, for the life of me, Charles, cannot figure out this 10-second runoff other than I believe it was instituted in the 1950s for some reason. And I guess this is the first time in modern history that it affected the end of a game. Can you figure it out? Because I can't. And I've been watching football for decades.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just passing strange, as they say. So, you know what, Chris? Let's go ahead and get right into it. The picks of the week. So, on the season, I've got a record of 12-3. Mr. Lardieri right behind me at 11-4. We both did pretty well last week. So, Chris, why don't you break down the first game for us?
The first game, the upstart, resurgent Los Angeles Rams head into Big D, coming off a nice win last night in Arizona on Monday Night Football with John Gruden throwing superlatives around to anyone and everyone. The Rams go in, let me check, they are a 7.5-point dog going into Arlington. I know Todd Gurley went on the set after Thursday Night Football and told Michael Irvin they were going to beat the Cowboys. Don't know if that's the case. I do think it'll be a good game. You know what the heck? I'll pick the Rams. They're playing well. There are aspects of the Cowboys defense I don't like, and I think if the Rams can get Gurley controlling the ball like they did early in the game against the 49ers, the Rams defense been a little bit of a disappointment this year, but I do think that's one team with Aaron Donald and company. They can contain Ezekiel Elliott, try and make Dak Prescott beat you. Look, I know he did it last night, but what the heck? Let's go with the upset pick, and we'll say the Rams continue to roll and battle for LA. Charles, are you fired up? Rams win in an upset.
All righty. Well, Gurley with 3 touchdowns last week, and Sammy Watkins also getting in sync with Jared Goff last week as well. He had 2. Now, remember, Zeke had his worst outing ever. I think, what did he have against the Broncos 2 weeks ago? 9 carries for 8 yards. And then he really wasn't that great against Arizona either. He had 2 long runs, one of 20, and I think another of about 10 or 15 yards. And that kind of made everything look respectable, but I still don't think he's really hit stride. And, you know, I hate that you did it first, but I was going to take the Rams to pull the upset here as well. So I got to go ahead and stick with that. I think that it's going to be a fun game to watch. But I like the Rams to go in there, and then, you know, is Dallas going to have a lot of turmoil next week? We don't know. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the Rams as well.
There's a lot of room on this bandwagon. Charles, welcome aboard.
Okay, and then the next game, Tennessee Titans, fresh off their win over Seattle. They're going to be in Houston to take on the Houston Texans. The Texans coulda, woulda, shoulda beat the Patriots this past week, but they didn't because, well, you know, late in the game, you got 4th and short. You can go for it, go for the touchdown, and possibly ice the game. They don't do that. They kick a field goal, leave enough time for Tom Brady to pull off some last-minute magic, and they lose the game. So if they were a little bit more aggressive, I think they would have won that game. You know, Tennessee is playing well. They're both playing well. But I'm going to go with Houston in this game. I think they learned from last week. I like the way they played all season long. The defense is really stout. Home field, I'm going with the Houston Texans. Mr. Lardieri.
As much as I like the Titans this year, I'm going to agree with you. I think on opening weekend, you know, we talk about distractions. Houston, a lot going on coming off the hurricane. I do think last week was a bit of a crushing loss, but you look, I mean, Deshaun Watson, I know it's early, is emerging as the Houston Texans look like they made a good move picking him. I know people like to dissect his arm, strength, accuracy. The guy's a winner, and we saw that last week. And if you don't believe me, look at the respect Tom Brady paid him at the end of the game. The running game, we'll talk about this in the fantasy segment a little. They've got this rookie, Donta Foreman, who's kind of a good 1-2 punch with Lamar Miller. They can control the ball against Tennessee and have Watson only throw when he needs to. I think it could be a slugfest, but the Texans eke it out at home.
Yep, I like that. So right now Tennessee is 2-1, the Texans at 1-2, and if this all goes well, goes well for the Texans, they'll both be at 500 after the game. So what do you think, Chris? Go ahead and break down the next one for us.
Game 3, NFC West battle, if you want to call it that. I guess we'll put it in quotes. The 49ers, 7-point underdogs, heading into the Great Toaster Oven Stadium in Glendale. I really don't know how to dissect and analyze this other than these are two struggling teams. I do feel, however, at the end of the day, I'll take an old beat-up Carson Palmer over Brian Hoyer, who threw the quickest interception that led to one play later, a touchdown for the Rams. I don't trust him. The 49ers, while they look good, they did kind of rally in garbage time against the Rams, and Watkins and a couple other players, including Tavon Austin, had gotten knocked out with concussions at that point. So I don't know why or how. I'll just say I'll go with the home team and pick the Cardinals. Sorry, audience. I don't have much more expert analysis for you on this game.
Yeah, Arizona is definitely a different team without David Johnson. So the Niners at 0-3, the Cards sitting at 1-2. I think this is going to be a coulda, woulda, shoulda for San Francisco. All the fans are going to look at that, and they're going to look at the few plays that's where it could have tipped in their team's favor. But, yeah, in the end, I'm going to go – I don't think that Arizona can screw up mightily enough to drop this game against San Francisco. That's what it comes down to. I think it's going to be ugly, just flat out ugly. But, yeah, I like Arizona in this one too.
Yeah, capital U ugly, Charles.
Okay, and then big AFC West matchup, the Oakland Raiders in Denver to take on the Broncos, both of them sitting at 2-1, both of them coming off disappointments last week. Oakland they got manhandled by the Washington Redskins last week, just manhandled, no other way to put it. And Denver looked just kind of weak against Buffalo, even though that was the worst personal foul penalty I've ever seen in my life, unsportsmanlike. Late in the game with Von Miller on Tyrod Taylor, just giving him the hand like he's going to help him up, and then he yanks it away. They're both standing there laughing and talking with each other, and then the ref throws a flag. I don't get it. But anyways, the game never should have been that close. But it's early in the season still. Oakland going into Denver, and Derek Carr, coming off that bad performance in Washington. I don't know what they're going to do here, but I like the defense of Denver. I like that thin air right now before everybody is truly in shape. I'm going Denver here over Oakland.
That's the first time we're going to disagree. I'm going with Oakland, and there are a couple reasons. I really think last week, as we discussed, there were a lot of distractions. Look, Oakland goes into Denver every year. They know how to play in that altitude. They've even won games there when they were inferior teams in the last few years. I just think last week was a just complete mess. I think they get back on board. Ultimately, I think the Bills had a good blueprint to defend Trevor Siemian. And if the Raiders can stop the run, they didn't do a great job of it against the Redskins. But if they can, C.J. Anderson and now the emergence of Jamal Charles, I think they've got a shot to win this game. Derek Carr was atrocious on Sunday, and I don't see that happening again. I don't see Michael Crabtree having one catch for 7 yards. Could be your typical back and forth AFC West slugfest, but going with Oakland in the upset in the Mile High City.
Well, we shall see. Also, remember, they said Amari Cooper, I think he has 6 or 7 drops already this year. So that's another one of the Raiders who really needs to get going if they're to have a chance here. So, Mr. Lardieri, break down the last game for us.
Final game, Monday night. And, you got to hand it to ESPN. They've gotten lucky with the Monday night slate the past few weeks. They got another good one. The surprising 2-1 Washington Redskins going to Arrowhead Stadium to face the undefeated, one of the best teams in football, Kansas City Chiefs. Washington, a 7-point dog. Kirk Cousins does not look like a man who is complacent with his continued 1-year, $20 million contracts. He's playing for his next one. Even with injuries, their patchwork backfield with Chris Thompson doing a good job, with Jordan Reed out. The venerable Vernon Davis steps up and catches a touchdown. And let's face it, they got a very unsung defense. Their pass rush really lit up the Raiders' offensive line and made life miserable for Carr all night. That said, I just like what the Chiefs are doing. They're home. Kareem Hunt, I'm not taking his face down off my banner here until he proves he's a bust. I mean, the guy just breaks off a great run every week. It really puts teams away. And I think with that and the way Tyreek Hill's playing, and look, Travis Kelce hasn't even gotten going. Imagine when Alex Smith starts distributing the ball to him. I think they're very dangerous on offense. I think it will be a good game. Don't by any means necessarily feel it'll be a blowout, but I do think the Chiefs pull this out, remain undefeated.
So when does Travis Kelce get going? Is that when he has, 8 catches for 115 yards and 2 unsportsmanlike calls? Is that pretty much a Travis Kelce day, right?
Yeah, I don't know if the over-under is 1 or 2 on the penalties, but yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Okay. Well, you know what? I like the Redskins too. I just think that the pass rush of the Kansas City Chiefs, I think Kirk Cousins does tend to get rattled a little bit. I think, the Redskins do have the underrated defense a little bit. Underrated overall, I think they are. But I think the pass rush is going to be a little bit too much for Cousins. I think he's going to get rattled. A few bad throws. That's going to happen. That'll be the difference in the game. So this is going to be a good one throughout. I'm definitely going to be watching it, no matter if they kneel or stand. But I'm going to go with the hometown Chiefs as well.
4 out of 5 in agreement, Charles. We're already making progress here on Inside Sports. I like it. And I think your Travis Kelce jokes are warranted, too, for the record.
That wasn't a joke. Okay. All right, everybody. So that's the picks of the week. And just to recap, we're both taking the Rams to upset Dallas. We're going to take Houston to defend the home turf against the Tennessee Titans. We're going to take Arizona to defend the nest against the San Francisco 49ers. And we're going to split on Denver and Oakland. Chris likes Oakland's chances there in Denver. I say the mile-high air works in Denver's favor, and the Broncos come out victorious. And then we both agree that Kansas City will get the win against the invading of Washington Redskins there on Monday night. So, Chris, before we get into the Gambler's Delight section, you got any more wisdom for us, man?
Sure. Read an interesting piece in the Washington Post last week that talked about why college football is more interesting than the NFL, and it laid out a number of arguments which are interesting, one of which is the offenses that you see in college and high school, more of this pistol, a little more exciting, and then when these guys get to the NFL, they aren't necessarily prepared for this stodgier, more conservative type play. And then I was watching the Chargers and Chiefs, and I realized, and the announcers talked about this, including Rich Gannon, Andy Reid's really done a good job of implementing aspects of that pistol. You'll see Tyreek Hill running from the backfield at times, and the way they get those quick passes, that really helps Alex Smith and has kind of revitalized his career. So, well, I do agree college is a more wide open game. I think it's good that Andy Reid's having success doing this. And, let's see longer term, this becomes a trend in the NFL. I know Chip Kelly tried it, but he really didn't have the personnel or frankly, the brains that a Reed does. No disrespect, Chip. And so that's something to keep on a longer-term trend here in TV viewing habits, etc. And then finally, Charles, look, we're headed into what, week 4? I think it's time to start the coaching hot seat. Why not? Marvin Lewis, Ben McAdoo, you're up. I don't have odds yet, but I think they're the first 2 names I'd like to nominate.
All righty. And what are they going to do? What about San Diego? No, you got to give him a chance there.
Yeah, he's a rookie. It's hard moving. Look at Jeff Fisher got a bonus and an extension just for packing up the Mayflower vans from St. Louis to L.A. So he had been with the Rams for a few years. So we'll give Lynn some time. It's not all his fault. His owners bungled that. Yeah,
there we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into the Gambler's Delight pick. You know what? On the season, I'm 1-2 with these, and Chris is a sparkling 3-0, including that great call last week, taking Houston and 13 points against the New England Patriots. I thought that Denver would definitely easily cover the 3-point spread in Buffalo. Imagine my surprise. So I'm only 1-2. Chris is a sparkling 3-0. Chris, you're the leader. Take it away.
Charles, for the record, it's better to be lucky than good. That said, there were 2 games I kind of liked this week, and they're both games we talked about in our pick segment. I do like Oakland going into Denver. However, it looks like that line's only plus 2.5 for Oakland, and if it ends up being a close game, a field goal battle, you always want that half a point for insurance. So the game I'm going to pick is one we talked about earlier. Houston home dog. When I see home underdog, my eyes light up. It's only 1.5. Some places may have it 2.5. If you can get more points, the better. Essentially, it turns into a pick 'em, or if it is a 1-point game, that's good for the Texans. I think they're going to win outright. So we're going to go with J.J. Watt, Deshaun Watson, my new favorite quarterback. I'm still bummed they didn't beat the Patriots, but it was nice that they at least covered and gave them a run for their money. Houston Texans is the pick.
Okay, and mine, I'm getting that big fat point spread in a game that we picked, and actually this is going to be a great time for this team to really announce, put the football world on notice. Take the Rams and 7.5 points in Dallas. Take the Rams and take those points, people. And hey, I don't know, the Rams may win, they may lose. It doesn't matter. Take those 7.5 points. Dallas really hasn't gotten going yet this year, so Rams plus 7.5 in Dallas. Take that one. And remember, we don't advocate gambling, but if you're in the sports book, you got $20 burning a hole in your pocket. Go ahead and, try your luck out there.
Yeah, definitely. And, I wanted to pick the Rams, but, Eric Dickerson wasn't there to run all over the Cowboys like the 1983 wild card game. But I do like the pick, especially if you get that extra half a point.
All right, there we go. Okay, people, so that's it. The pick segment, the Gambler's Delight. Only one thing left, and that is the man with many, 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 many years of experience in fantasy sports. Chris, take it away. Fantasy football. What do you got for all the players out there?
Charles, this has been an unusual year. My team is in a 14-team league. I'm 3-0. Look, a lot of it has to do with Kareem Hunt, but every week someone steps up. Last week it was Sammy Watkins, who people laughed that I drafted. He's my number 3 wide receiver. I'm happy to have him, and I hope he's recovered from his concussion. Look, a few pieces of information I like to pass along. People love to look at rankings, and look, there's a lot of money to be made on some of these websites to give your rankings every week. I admit I've looked at them in the past, but I'm at the point in my life where I look at them and sometimes I laugh. Had you looked at rankings last week, you would have probably had Russell Wilson, T.Y. Hilton, guys like that on the bench. DeMarco Murray, everyone had written them off and said Derrick Henry was the heir apparent. Right. If you've got guys that are like starters, let them play. Unless they're going up against the 85 Bears and they're coming back out of retirement against your team and Mike Singletary suddenly 30 years younger. Play your guys. I mean, you really got nothing to lose at that point. That said, if you need a quarterback, someone's really struggling, someone's hurt or banged up, you look at like if you have Sam Bradford, for instance, or if you just feel Jay Cutler goes off the reservation too much. There are a number of what they call streaming candidates out there. Look, I said Jared Goff a few weeks ago. Let's stick with him. I think he could do well against the Dallas defense. Eli Manning, Ben McAdoo really blamed him for all the team's problems last week. But, if this team's going to stink and be playing from behind, he might be throwing a lot. And as long as OBJ is healthy and not in the doghouse. Ha ha ha. I mean, the guy's going to get you some points. Look, Andy Dalton last week put up decent numbers. If you're really in a bind, it looks like he likes his new offensive coordinator. AJ Green's been resurrected. And then the Deshaun's, Watson and Kaiser. Deshaun will get you some running yards. He may even run in a touchdown. He's a lot more conservative with the ball than Brock Osweiler. He doesn't force it. And look, Kaiser plays on a terrible team, but that's same with the Eli logic. They think he's going to be chucking the ball, and he gets some cheap rushing touchdowns too. We've got some injuries to running backs. You look in San Diego, potentially Brandon Oliver might be getting some more carries. With LeGarrette Blount hurt in Philadelphia, Wendell Smallwood could be an option there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Jamal Charles of the Broncos and Donta Foreman of the of the Texans. They look like they're running well. Maybe you grab these guys, stash them on the bench. If one of the backs in front of them is ineffective or gets hurt, those are guys you could start in a few weeks. And then finally, look, we're heading into bye weeks. Keep an eye on the schedule. Know who's going to be out. Know when you go into waiver wire. All right, if I pick this guy up, make sure he's not having a bye week in a subsequent week. Or maybe your quarterback's on bye. Look for some of these streaming candidates I outlined for you. So moral of the story is plug and play the guys you have to. Be strategic. And frankly, don't read the ranking. Just watch games. Watch highlights. You'll see who's playing well. You don't need to know how many targets so-and-so had or how many drops Amari Cooper had.
Right.
Think of it as a football player, and I think that'll do you a lot more value than reading some guy's random rankings.
All right. Fantastic, everybody. There's the ever-eloquent Mr. Chris Lardieri. Remember, you can follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. You can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. So for Chris Lardieri, this is Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for watching NFL Football Talk, and we will see everybody next week. Enjoy the games. Josh. Okay. Yeah. Let me stop at both places here. Okay, Chris, you done?
All right. Good job.
Good. All right, man.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Later.